Hey, everybody. Welcome to Blue Ribbon Lounge Podcast.
Welcome back to the lounge.
We're in it deep this time.
Yes, under 5 feet of snow.
Ooh, it's been so chilly.
Yeah.
None of it has melted since the last late episode.
No, but now it's raining, so.
Yeah, we'll just turn everything to ice. A nice thin sheet of ice for everyone to drive on.
This morning when I walked out of the house, I almost bit it.
Oh, no. One of those super slippery Ring doorbell videos.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, it's not that bad. And then like halfway down the sidewalk, I was like, whoa. And I started sliding. Like,
Surf all the way?
Yeah.
We got a weird one this time, Dave.
Yeah, we do.
We'll get right into it. And then we'll save the other stuff for later. I feel like we talk about, was that dog? Do we hear pod dog? Yeah. The pod dog is trapped by a cat. I'm sure of it.
He's not very ferocious.
Yeah, right. But I feel like we talk about stuff that's like super not applicable. I don't know when people normally listen.
Like during the day, in the morning, or at night,
or like 3 weeks later.
Maybe.
Who knows? Oh my gosh! I gotta go shut that dog up.
Pod dog. I just think we get warmed up and then we get into usually our topic.
Well, maybe. I haven't been doing much. It's been so snowy and all my events have happened already.
Yeah. It is that time where you're just in the doldrums of staying at home and eating soup.
Yeah. I've just been watching Black Magic TV. He's been playing Baldur's Gate.
Yeah. Seems to be the one that everybody's playing now.
Yeah, it looks good. I just don't have the time to be spending, $100 on a game, and then it's like such a long game, it looks like.
That one, yeah, like the ones that are just kind of open world and you do whatever.
Yeah, though I am pretty far on Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, so.
Good for you.
I
take a hiatus from that and play Final Fantasy 16.
16, how is that? 16 of them, huh?
Yeah.
Was 15 was the online one?
11 and 14.
Oh, okay. Dang, 16 of those things.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, I binged it.
Okay.
With the holiday season. And then,
Martin Luther King Day?
Yeah, and then the extra long weekends and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
That's all right. Video games are fun. Detach a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like you're a little more engaged than just being like, I'm going to binge Needful Things or Secret Special Stranger Things. That's one I don't even know.
We did just get Netflix back so I could watch the Stavros Halkias Fat Rascal special.
Ooh, okay.
And then Dusty Slay Working Man special.
He has his new special out?
This is his first real special.
Oh, okay.
He has a couple of albums, and he has on Netflix, there's like a short 15-minute each stand-up like series.
Okay.
And that one was pretty good on Netflix. I haven't watched this stand-up yet because I'm waiting for the wife to have some extra time.
Okay.
You know what I did watch?
Soup to Nuts. It's Mark Norman's comedy special.
Okay.
And I think Sam Morril has one. Because I'm kind of behind. I think Tom Segura has one too, like all on Netflix. Because we don't have Netflix either.
Yeah.
Because we got she signed up for Pluto, which I think was free. So I don't know.
I think Pluto is free.
Maybe she just got the app. Yeah,
we got like Tubi and Freevee. And that's where we spend most of the time watching stuff anyway. I like stuff with commercials.
Yeah, I don't mind. Because I guess they have old episodes of Survivor on there.
Ooh, that'd be pretty good.
So we've been watching that. And then the kids are old enough that they're kind of like, oh, look, physical challenges and stuff like that.
They're going to be out back jumping on logs and stuff or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of bounce around from Hulu and Amazon and Netflix and stuff, just depending on what's on there. So.
Yeah.
And then Big Mouth, if you ever watched that was a good one.
I've never seen that.
It's good. It's very uncomfortable. It's like children talking about going through puberty.
Oh, okay.
So it's very uncomfortable. Also, like, there's a bunch of characters in there, so you can kind of resonate with a little bit of each of them.
Oh, so it's like relatable?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah, I'm so behind. I haven't even seen Breaking Bad.
I tried to watch the first couple of seasons and I couldn't get into it. Now it's like 18 seasons and
What?
not a big binger.
I don't know how many they ended up with, but it's not continuing.
Yeah, it's over now.
Yeah, so you can catch up. But like, yeah, none of those kind of shows like Entourage or the one about the guys who were advertising people.
Oh, Mad Men.
Yeah.
I think my wife watched a lot of that. She watched all of that Marvelous Miss Maisel, which is kind of in the same era, I think. Maybe 10 years before or so.
I heard that one was decent.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Oh, okay.
A lot of stand-up in it, technically. You know?
Because she's a comedian.
Yeah. I did watch the fantastic visual experience that was Galaxina.
Oh, yes. Speaking of our topic.
Yeah. So I thought we'd talk about the movie first.
Yeah.
Because that was what was written in the podcast topics.
Well, the topic was, Galaxina.
And I had never heard of it. But it's a space spoof movie of movies like Star Wars, Alien, and it was released in June of 1980.
Yes.
The cast consisted of Stephen Mott, never heard of him, J.D. Hinton, never heard of him, Avery Schreiber, and he was known for a bunch of Doritos commercials before that.
Yeah, he's like a comedian, kind of like Dom DeLuise-esque, kind of like dad joke kind of comedian, like one-liner. Like, like if you needed a quote-unquote fat guy for a movie, he'd be like one of those, hey, we need a funny fat guy, let's get this guy in here.
And he was pretty funny, but the whole movie was pretty dry. So this Avery Schreiber, known for his Doritos commercials, he looked exactly like Jack Black's character on Nacho Libre.
Oh yeah, with the curly hair and the mustache, I can see that.
Yeah. And then also it's called Nacho Libre, Doritos
nacho cheese.
Yeah,
yeah.
I couldn't find any exact tie-ins. It was driving me nuts. I was looking on for a long time.
I could see if you're like, he kind of based it off that, but he was also Mexican in that movie, and this guy I don't think is a Mexican.
No, he looks maybe more Italian.
Yeah. And
got that olive complexion, dark hair.
Yeah. And the one guy, I don't know which one it is, but out of the first two you said, he's the hothead guy from the Warriors, I believe is what you might know him from.
And you know what? I don't know which one his name would be, but I can see that now after watching the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this movie is so weird. The directors and producers didn't know if they wanted the movie to be rated PG-13 or R.
Yeah.
So they filmed a bunch of stuff with like one with cursing, one without.
Yeah, one with nudity, one without.
Yeah. And so they had two cuts of like a bunch of different scenes. They ended up going with rated R.
Yeah, which, I mean, unless the link that you sent me was edited, it's not even like that R-ish. I mean, there's like drug use and there's a brothel, but there's not any like really bad cursing or like nudity.
It was edited. At least the one part where they do show some boobies, it was edited like fuzzed out.
Yeah,
because it was on YouTube.
Right, but it was only like a second. It wasn't like one of those like a Porky's or like American Pie, and like where there's just like bunch of nudity.
Yeah, and I can never figure it out if like, because in like the 80s, surely a PG-13 movie would have been rated R now. I feel like.
Yes. I want to say
like even like Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
Yeah.
Like the opening scene is him getting a blowy from a gal.
The client, yeah.
Now it doesn't show anything, but
right. And I think back in the day, even like a PG movie like Goonies still had like some adult content, and like they could sneak in maybe one F-bomb.
Yeah. And now you're talking about like SpongeBob SquarePants. There's a lot of adult situations in that, but they all go so far over the kids' heads.
Yeah.
I think there's just like such a huge gap there that it does still work.
Right. Well, I think also back in the day, PG is parental guidance, which means there might be questionable things in there, but as a parent, you're there to guide your kids to be like, oh, okay, well, sometimes when people stub their toe, they say a curse word,
Yeah.
But now PG is like, just turn it on for your kids and let animated pigs sing songs for
and you can walk out
90
of the
minutes.
room.
Yeah.
So on the set that they were shooting of this movie, there was a huge leak in the middle of shooting, and they lost 3 days to the rain. But supposedly the production company wouldn't give them any more time.
Yeah, something like they were scheduled for 25 days, but they ended up shooting for 17 days.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think that you can shoot a whole movie in 17 days, like a big production like that.
Well, there wasn't a lot of different scenes.
Or like...
and you know what? The first half is all like 2 scenes, and then the last half is just a couple of different scenes. Maybe there were more scenes than I thought. And maybe it was just on this one set that they were talking about.
Yeah, I don't think they changed a lot of locations too much.
But like, so they lost these 3 days, and supposedly, I don't know if it was the producer or the writer or what, or maybe director, just like ripped a bunch of pages out of the script and was like, there.
Yeah, I think it was the producer, because the director was like, hey, we need more time. And he's like, actually, here, you don't need any more time. And yeah, I think that affects the movie, because I was following it, and then about the middle, it switches what the whole direction of the movie is.
Yeah, it like turns into a Western.
Well, it's about them getting a blue star.
Yes.
The precious blue star.
Yeah.
But then, like, all of a sudden it turns into a romance out of, like, nowhere. And it's like, I didn't see that coming. Like, that was weird. Like, just kind of forced in there. But it could be all the parts they tore out is where all the character building and stuff was.
And did Galaxina even have any... She couldn't talk. Her character couldn't talk, right?
She could. I think she couldn't. But then there's a part where everybody goes in cryo sleep, and then she's by herself for 75 years,
watching a bunch of movies,
and like learns to talk and like develops feelings or something.
Yeah,
that's the part that's a little dry, and I think I might have snoozed a little bit, because I'm like, what's going on?
And then there's a part in the movie where they land on an alien planet.
Yes.
And the director was like, we got to shoot this so it looks really weird and different. And so he wanted to shoot it with this thermal film, which instead of catching like the visuals, it catches all the heat.
Yeah.
And so they had to do like, well, first he was like, we want to do this. And everybody else was like, no, don't do that.
Yeah. Because I guess you have to, like, it's really delicate, and you have to keep it frozen until you use it. Mm-hmm. And then to process it, like a big vat of stuff, it just ruins the whole thing.
Yeah.
So any kind of processing company would be like, well, you're just going to make us waste a lot of chemicals to develop your film.
And even Kodak, who was the supplier, was like, nah, we're not going to sell you this. We'll do this. We'll sell you 50,000 feet.
Yeah. Which
was way more than they needed. They did end up finding a production that didn't use all of theirs, and they used that.
Yeah, so they ended up using someone's leftovers.
Yeah, and that was kind of the whole vibe of this movie. And so, like you were saying, to produce the film, what was that called? Expose the film.
Expose the film, yes.
They did find a company that did all the exposures, and they would like do a bunch of films, and then like the day before the fluid expired, they would do their film.
Yeah, their thermo film.
Yeah, and so that's how they got around that.
Yeah, and you were saying when I said they used a bunch of leftovers, and you're like, that's what it felt like. They used a bunch of props and stuff left over from Star Wars.
Yeah, and like a bunch of the model makers and set designers and stuff were also from Star Wars.
Yeah, which was interesting that they had like a pretty good like supporting. I don't know if you'd say cast, but like behind the scenes people, because a lot of the crew and the people who did the miniatures in this movie were phenomenal. I thought
they were really good.
Yeah,
and I heard that the only CGI was like the billboard at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, like a neon sign.
I couldn't even read it on the YouTube video that we watched.
Yeah. But yeah, they also like when they went to the funky planet with the everything's red and orange. That's obviously was a reused set from a Western.
Yeah.
And then they even had the Batmobile, like from the old Adam West show in the background.
Wait, what? I didn't catch that part.
Yeah. And I guess because they just had it on hand and they're like, oh, let's throw that in there as an Easter egg, but it didn't run. So they just had some like aliens working on it.
That's funny. That's awesome. Yeah, so this the thermal film, I guess, was actually used in Apocalypse Now, which was pretty interesting.
I'm not sure when, but I only think I've seen that movie once.
I think I would agree with that.
Because I think it's a little too, I mean, I might go back now that I'm older and revisit it, but when I saw it as like a teenager, I was like, this is a little too
deep,
far out or deep. Yeah.
And then the lead biker named Chopper.
Yeah.
He was played by Stephen Morell. His birth name was Mark Rosen, and he had previously changed his name to Aesop Aquarian after joining the Manson family.
Yes. Fun fact.
Yeah, fun fact. Shout out to, did we do an episode on that? Cult Family Values or something like that?
Yeah.
That was a while ago.
Yeah, it was like our first year for like Christmas, I think. Or no, second year? I don't know.
Good job, Dave.
Okay.
Oh, and I guess really the star of the show, I don't even know if I said her name. Dorothy Stratton as Galaxina.
Right.
Who turned into the whole episode research that I think we both did.
Yeah, because once you start digging, that's the big one that pops up. I mean, this Aesop Aquarian might have been interesting to look up, but I guess he was only in the family for a little bit, and then it started to get like too heavy for him.
You don't say.
You guys are getting a little crazy. I'm gonna dip.
I came for the drugs, and this is getting to be more than
hang
that.
out with the Beach Boys.
But Dorothy Stratton, this is going to be, I think, the true meat of the episode.
Yes.
Born Dorothy Ruth Hoog Stratton. February 1960. And her parents migrated from the Netherlands to Canada.
Yes. Would that be considered Swedish?
The Netherlands?
Or is the Netherlands could be Finland, Sweden?
I thought the Netherlands
Iceland.
was its own thing.
It's not. There's not a country called Netherlands.
Oh, there's not?
No, it's like saying New Hampshire, and there's no state called New Hampshire.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, I think it's like Finland and Iceland.
The Netherlands, a country in Europe.
What? Shows how much I know.
Amsterdam. Is Amsterdam in the Netherlands? Right above Belgium?
Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. It's a little like it's tucked in there between Germany and that other one,
Deutschland? Denmark? It's between Germany and Belgium. Denmark is more north of Germany.
Okay, but there's a bunch of little countries right in that area.
Yeah, it's kind of sitting outskirted. I think you're maybe thinking of like the Czechia and Slovakia and Austria and Hungary.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big kind of bubbling pot of countries there. The Netherlands is like 80% coastline.
Okay.
Not 80%.
A lot of fjords.
Huh?
A lot of fjords.
What's a fjord?
It's like a bay.
Oh, okay.
But it's a fjord.
What do you call a bird that flies over a fjord?
A Beagle.
A Bjord goal. Yeah, so when she was younger growing up in Canada,
Vancouver.
ooh, Vancouver, the Canuck country, she was working at a Dairy Queen and also a telephone operator.
That's what I heard, but they really say a lot about the Dairy Queen because that's where this guy Paul Schneider found.
Is that the Snyder Cut?
Could be. That's no.
It's not.
No.
He's been long dead.
Yeah. But yeah, he was 26 and she was only 17.
Mm-hmm.
But he was also a promoter, like a club promoter,
Mm-hmm.
and a quote unquote pimp.
Supposed.
Well, I've heard that he was, but then like the criminals activity, they didn't really like him that much.
Oh,
and they dangled
who
him.
would like this guy?
They dangled him by his ankles over a 38-foot or 30 whatever. He was on the 38th floor.
Ooh.
They dangled him by his ankles over the balcony.
All they had to do was let go, and we would have had less of the story.
All right, for some kind of loan. So he was like, so he got out of town, and what I heard is he went to Hollywood and got himself a gold limo.
Ooh.
And was pimping girls out of the gold limo.
Okay.
And then he was finding out that it wasn't as glamorous as he wanted it to be. So then he moved back home, and that's when he stumbled into Dairy Queen and saw this lady.
This young woman.
Yes.
So yeah, she was 17, and apparently her parents didn't have any problems with her dating a 26-year-old.
Yeah, and he was like buying her dresses and stuff.
Yeah, super expensive gifts.
Yeah, and like took her to her prom.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, that the school would be like, oh, sure, old person.
A person who is of teacher age.
Yes.
Uh,
But I wonder, it didn't really get into it, but in situations like this, and she was just it was just her mom. If this guy was showering gifts on all of them at the time.
Yeah, because it was also her mom and she had a younger sister.
Yeah, and a brother.
Okay.
Yeah, so if he's just coming in like throwing out gifts and saying, yes, ma'am, and how you doing? And I'm going to take you guys all out to Sizzler. And
Sizzler.
then maybe they're like, okay, we can kind of look the other way.
Yeah, I didn't put that together. Dairy Queen up in Canada, that must have been a pretty big franchise.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s. Next episode, History of Dairy Queen.
Yes.
Yeah, and so Paul Snyder starts suggesting to her that she take nude pictures.
Yeah, because he kept telling her how good looking she is and how she should be a model, and like the predatory thing is he got her to do some photo shoots.
That's some super grooming right there.
Yeah, and then when she saw how great the like pictures turned out, then he's like, oh well, maybe you should do nude, or
yeah.
I don't know how you do that.
Broach the subject.
Yes.
I mean there's a lot of social norms that maybe those type of groomers don't follow.
Yeah, I mean if you're sleazy, you're just gonna be sleazy.
Yeah. And at the time when Dorothy turned 18, Snyder suggested that she submit photos for the 25th anniversary Playboy, the Great Playmate Hunt, was announced.
Yes, which sounds very late 70s kind of thing.
But it's also like, send us your free nudes.
Yeah, so we can
judge you.
And then use your pictures in the magazine.
Yeah.
And that sounds weird nowadays. But I was also...
nowadays?
Well, yeah, because you would never be like around the cooler at work and be like, hey, do you see the Playboys trying to find some playmates?
Yeah, it's definitely a different era for nude pictures.
But not even that. Like, I was looking at some of the stuff that she was in, not to get too far ahead, but there was like a Playboys, roller disco, and pajama party, and it was just like had celebrity guests, and it was like a variety show that was
Oh,
just
really?
on. Like it wasn't like a permanent one, but like it was a special that they probably aired on like CBS or NBC.
And Playboy just sponsored it.
Yeah, and had all their playmates there, in bikinis and
Yeah.
roller discoing and stuff.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So Dorothy being 18, she couldn't consent because the age limit in her area was 19 to be a consenting adult.
In Canada.
In Canada, yeah. And her mother signed the consent form for the photographs.
Yeah, the release form or whatever.
Yeah, which is maybe a tip of the cap to what you were saying. Maybe he was buying stuff for everybody, and getting really in with the family.
Yeah.
As opposed to just Dorothy.
Yeah, and that's another one that throws me for a loop because, yes, well, yeah, okay, so like a 17-year-old girl takes a selfie in the bathtub and sends it to somebody, and that's CP now.
Yeah.
Like, but what if you were to send it and your mom texted next to it, it's okay that she does this, then it's not like considered.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Didn't consider that. And maybe also if it was sent to the States and the consenting age was 18, maybe it's a little different.
Yeah, because I actually think what happened is he got a photographer that had ends with Playboy to take the more whatever provocative photos, and the photographer to cover his ass said that he needed that release from the mom.
Yeah. And so they did, and landed on the desk of talent scout Marilyn Grabowski, who called Dorothy a babe in the woods. And I thought it was pretty interesting that they did have a woman talent scout.
Yeah, I think I don't know a lot about Playboy, but
tons.
No, I just know when he died, there was a lady, I think it's the same one, that had been there the whole time, and she was kind of like the talent scout.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, that's one positive, I guess, given women good roles and in the company you're in.
Yeah, giving them some kind of, or maybe she's
maybe she sat at her desk in a bikini. I don't know.
No,
maybe she was still hella
objectified.
objectified.
Is, she just looks like she was good for the job.
She was a little older, and yeah, the image I saw, she just looked like a business lady at a computer.
Yeah.
So 1978, she was told she made it to the top 25, and she hitched a ride to LA to pursue her modeling career.
Yeah. And then I think she ended up getting second.
She did. After she changed her name to just Dorothy Stratton, she got a job at the Playboy Mansion. And I don't know how long this whole time period was. And I don't know how long, I guess, that kind of thing takes. I wonder who was voting on it. I wonder if you could, had a little write-in ballot. In your Playboy magazine, you'd have, a tear-out.
And then you mail it?
Yeah.
But it seemed like they made the choice because...
Oh, you're right.
They wanted her... They gave her second because they didn't think she was quite mature enough yet to, deal with that.
Yeah, she lost to a gal named Candy Love.
Yeah, because I think she was older, and so they thought... but they were still impressed with her that they made her Miss August?
Yes.
Of that year.
Which is, probably what you would call the centerfold, I would guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't look a whole lot into Playboy, yeah, but I did check some of the pics, and I'm going to go with Dorothy on this one.
Okay.
But brush that one under the rug?
Yeah. But yeah, she started... So they made her second place, and then they're like, come back and we'll do an August issue with you.
I don't think they even said come back because she got a job there.
Yeah, she was cocktail waitressing or something.
Yeah, in the mansion.
Yeah.
Which she made it sound like was a pretty taxing job with all the old gross guys coming in there and hitting on you. And
yeah, because I think, especially back then when it was,
society was a little...
But it's in its heyday, so it's more like a gentleman's club. People are coming in. There's always parties, you know. And if you're walking around being like, cigarettes, mints, you know, cigars, wearing a bunny outfit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of creepers, a lot of them Weinstein types around.
And, you know, it really only takes one gal to do it, to sleep with one of these sleazeballs. And then everybody else is like, well, she did it. Oh, you won't?
Oh, that's gross. Yeah.
Hey, Hef, what are you doing here?
Yeah. Well, they said, it gets into it later, but they said even he was a little bit slimy.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so she started doing good, and then Paul decided to move to LA to kind of have more say in what she's doing.
Yeah, he moved to LA, and he became her manager and
chauffeur
and agent.
Yes.
Even though he had no real experience in doing it.
No, and then she wanted to get into acting, and so he was like, I'm going to be your acting coach.
Yeah. And then that's when he started like convincing her to try to sleep with these other guys to try to get roles and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where you get your Weinsteins and your Cosbys and
yeah, and she said that she was really put off by that.
How could you not be?
Right. And
it's not to soapbox, but it's like, is that the only way? I mean, I guess it takes a sleazeball to do a sleazeball move. I don't know.
Well,
I don't even know if I have the words for it. I don't think like that.
Yeah, I don't think about that anyway either. But if you're a pimp,
yeah,
and a sleazeball, so then you're like, hey, babe, you know, if you see I don't know anybody famous back then, but
well, I would imagine it was like, oh, this big famous movie director was all over me today. I just feel so gross. Well, why didn't you sleep with him? Could have been the big times.
Yeah, I bet he would give you a part in his movie.
Gosh.
But yeah, then she did a couple bit parts.
Some not background. Well, like background extras. Yes, yeah. That's the word.
But then she also had a couple roles like in Fantasy Island and Buck Rogers. I think she made an appearance in. And then I guess she did some weird Canadian movie. Oh,
it was like an exploitation movie, like a sexploitation movie.
Which makes me think that maybe Paul kind of pushed her a little bit.
Yeah, it was called Autumn Born. The IMDb summary is, a young rich woman is kidnapped and taken to a school of quote-unquote discipline.
Yeah.
To me, that sounds like a real Betty Page type flick.
Or like a Roger Corman kind of.
I'm not sure who that is.
Oh, he did a lot of different things he would do, because he would mostly produce, and he would do a lot of like B-grade horrors, some exploitation movies, you know, just dabble in a little of everything. But really, all she was trying to do was get her foot in the door, and that's how she actually picked up the Galaxina.
Well, and maybe there's something to be said about being underprivileged and not having the money to be able to take big acting classes and meet the right people and stuff, which is a fucking shame.
Yeah. Or like, what's that? There's a term for it where you're like...
Describe it and I'll tell you the exact term.
Like, say, Nicolas Cage. He's a good actor.
Making a comeback.
But his grandpa or somebody is Scorsese or like a... in one of those...
Yeah, when you have like a family
Scorsese or something, like he's got an in.
Yeah.
It's like his cousin or something. And I think I don't want to talk bad about Taylor Swift to get all the Swifties on us. But I think like her dad or grandpa was like a producer.
Well, it's
like a big time producer.
Kid Rock came from money.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like supposed to be some sort of trailer trash looking guy, you know.
I thought he was. I don't know.
I mean, he's a trash person.
Yeah, I don't know his backstory.
But not that kind of trash. He came from a bunch of money.
Oh, okay. I know he rapped with ICP for a little bit before branching out.
I'll check that out.
Yeah, he's on their first album.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's all like, Kid Rock, is that you? Why don't you tell me what you're going to do? Yeah.
Didn't know that. And eventually within this time, her and Paul did get married, so he really got his talons in her at that point.
Yeah, I think he kept like bugging her.
And he started like really this is when he started really digging in deep on like her diet, her sleeping with influential men that came through the Playboy Mansion.
Yeah, trying to be more controlling. Because
Mm-hmm.
when she was shooting Galaxina, he would drive her there, and then he would just hang around the set.
Yeah.
And they said that he didn't really talk, but he would just stare at her and then give death eyes to anybody that was like talking to her.
Yeah. Which is funny because there's like a couple of scenes where, a guy gets handsy on her. And it's those parts in the movie are hilarious because she's a robot.
Yeah.
And every time a guy does it, he like gets electrocuted.
Yeah, he gets zapped. Yeah.
Which is funny. And they did say that on the set, they eventually had to kick him out and ban him.
Yeah.
Because, well, one, he was making everybody, including Dorothy, uncomfortable to where she couldn't even act.
Yeah.
And he would walk around with like spurs on his boots.
So they'd be like, ching, ching. He's like, you can't, shh, we're filming. So yeah, and then during that time, she was still like doing photo shoots and working at the Playboy Mansion because that's when she met Peter Bogdanovich.
Yes.
Bogdanovich. Something like that.
Well, she did also win Playmate of the Year, or am I jumping ahead?
She
all this time frame is so short.
Yeah, it was like pretty much a 2-year period when all this stuff happened. I think when they were doing the August, they were looking at her pictures for the Playmate for August. They really liked her pictures, and they're like, well, let's go ahead and make her Playmate of the Year for 1980.
Yes, 1980.
And they pretty much unofficially told her, but then she met Peter Bogdanovich. That's okay. And then she was still shooting Galaxina at the time.
Yeah.
And he started to be a little weird also.
Yeah, she had like some sort of, I don't want to call it like a martyrism, but almost like, I feel like an Elvis type situation where people and the Colonel, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, did this.
Tom Hanks.
Yeah, Tom Hanks' character. He really did the same thing to Elvis in that he got his hooks in him, used him for everything he was worth, and he suffered because of it.
Yeah.
And also, well, not to get ahead. But yeah, so she met this Peter Bogdanovich. He was trying to get her to quit Galaxina.
Yeah, because he wanted to, quote unquote, discover her.
Yeah.
Be the first one to have her in like an official like
movie role.
Yeah.
And he also tried to get Hugh Hefner and Playboy to put pressure on, I don't know if it was her or the production company.
And I think he even harassed the studio.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he had a movie called They All Laughed.
Yes.
And he wanted her to be in the lead role as the love interest for Three's Company. Jack Ritter?
Ritter, yes.
John Ritter?
John Ritter.
John Ritter.
What else was he was in Three's Company? What else was he in? His face is so familiar.
He was in...
And maybe it's because of Three's Company.
Stay Tuned. He was in 10 Rules for Dating My Daughter or
That's,
something like that.
I think it.
Yeah.
10 Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter.
Yes. He had that show.
That was a TV show, yeah.
Yeah.
So Peter Bogdanovich did the Last Picture Show. That was what he was most famous for.
Yeah, he did a lot of well, he did the movie The Mask, if you know that one with Cher.
Is that the one with the guy with the weird looking face?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then what I see was this.
He had a bunch of failing movies too that I saw.
Yeah, and then some that you wouldn't think, because he did like.
Would that have been a cult classic? Is this The Last Picture Show? Is that like a cult classic?
I haven't seen it, but I
Oh,
think it
okay.
might have been the one that made Sybil Shepherd popular or
Okay.
famous, because he kind of did this kind of the same thing, where he found Sybil Shepherd,
Sybil?
and then put her in a leading role, and she became like a star off of that before she went to like moonlighting and all that.
Because wasn't she in like a TV show too?
Moonlighting.
Yeah. I don't know if I
with
know
Bruce
that one.
Willis. And she was in the other
Taxi
ones.
Driver she was in.
Yeah, she was the lady that worked for the candidate.
Damn, you know a lot about movies.
I know the good movies. Taxi Driver. I mean, come on. Robert De Niro. Are you talking to me?
I haven't seen
you
that
might
one.
talking to me.
And then so They All Laughed also starred Audrey Hepburn
Yeah.
and then John Ritter, like you said. And so Peter Bogdanovich like fell so madly in love with her, and then they started having an affair. He started making John Ritter look more and more like him in the movie.
Yeah, because the movie is about a girl in a loveless marriage that starts cheating. So it was kind of similar to what was going on.
What was that? Moulin Rouge?
Moulin Rouge.
The movie? Isn't that what that's about?
I don't know. I thought it was just dancing and singing.
No, I think it's about like the main character is married to like the prince or something, and she wants to be an actress, and she starts sleeping with like the producer of the plays, and the producer starts writing a play about the producer falling in love with the actress who is married to the prince.
Yeah.
And so he like writes the exact situation, very Inception like.
Oh, okay.
Dude, I know some movies too.
I don't know if that's Moulin Rouge, but
maybe it's something
I'll give it
different.
to you.
I'll ask my wife.
yeah. All right. Yeah, and also they were filming in New York, and Snyder wanted to go with her, and she's like, "Oh no, it's another closed set like last time."
Yeah, she learned that trick from when they actually had to kick him out.
Yeah, in Galaxina, but really, I guess it wasn't. She just wanted to have distance and have this affair.
Because at this point, she's like becoming a woman,
Yeah,
and she can start seeing the crazy shit that he's doing.
right, because with the help of her accountant
And manager,
yeah, she set up like
an agent.
like an LLC for herself to start trickling her money into that, so then Paul Snyder couldn't get his hands on her money.
Yeah, robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
Not that, but I just thought those names were funny. And she was... Damn, I forgot what I was going to say. I shouldn't have made such a stupid joke.
Sorry.
It took it from me.
But yeah,
Paul was... He didn't have a green card,
yeah,
so he like literally couldn't work.
right.
So he only had the money that she was making.
Yeah, and she was kind of giving him an allowance, it seemed like.
Yeah, which is like another, I feel like, sleazeball move where, you're like just siphoning off the gains of what you feel like you created.
Yeah. And then in the middle of filming that They All Laughed, she went back to Los Angeles because she had to accept her Playmate of the Year awards, which seemed like a substantial amount.
Oh yeah,
of
it was
stuff.
like $25,000 and a new Jaguar.
Yeah, and like a $20,000 mink coat.
Yeah,
And like a $10,000 bathtub.
yeah, that fit like 10 people.
Yeah.
And did you see that on the Johnny Carson?
Yeah.
Yeah,
when
that
she
was a good
talking about
interview.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so then they went on a publicity tour, which
up in Canada,
yeah,
right?
because they were trying to still keep him away from her or her away from him, whichever way. And but then he got mad because she wrote him a note and said, maybe we shouldn't hang out too much. Let's have some separation.
Well, didn't he took her up to Canada for a publicity tour to go around to a bunch of his old promotional haunts?
Yeah, it was at the end of the Playboy tour. She scheduled or whatever, like a week or two, so she could just hang out with family
in Canada.
Yeah, and he came up there, and then instead of her just getting a vacation, he made her do all these publicity
side gigs.
Yeah.
And he just pocketed all the money.
Just kept it for himself.
And then she was like, nah, and cut the tour early.
Yeah, and then went back to New York where he couldn't follow her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when she wrote him a letter being like, hey, we need to get a divorce.
Yeah. And he went nuts.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm going to come to New York. And didn't do that.
No, but he did sell all her stuff that she got from the Playmate of the Year.
Yeah, and that's what the main thing that I heard was like the Jaguar. I think he even sold her plaque.
Yeah,
which is weird. And I would imagine that he was selling like a bunch of other stuff that she had too, because she hadn't lived there for so long and was doing this movie. He was like, well, I need money.
Yeah. And so like he got roommates and then was selling her shit
to afford a private investigator.
Right, to see what was going on in New York.
And he was hearing the rumors about Peter Bogdanovich, to which she eventually confirmed.
Yeah.
And even after, was there anything before when she went back to California? It's just all so packed in there.
Yeah. I think they just wrapped on the movie, and then she quietly moved back, and she moved back in with Bogdanovich.
Mm-hmm.
And
set everything up to get this divorce rolling.
Yeah. And that's when she met with him one time, and they speculate that he thought he could just like smooth talk her because, he's been doing it
to an 18-year-old girl for so long.
Yeah, and then he finds out that no, she's like more mature and more self-confident.
Yeah,
and can tell him no.
Yeah, I just imagine her being at like some movie set and being like, "Oh, I have to confirm with my husband to be able to do this," and some like other guy's like, "What?
Like what? Yeah, what do you mean?" Yeah. Because even like her lawyers and stuff were like, "Do you want us to just take care of it?"
Yeah, but she thought, and this is still very much a very like youthful attitude towards her, where she thought that they could still be friends and
just work it out between them. And
spoiler alert, no.
Yeah, because after their first meeting, she's like, "Okay, then we're gonna have one more meeting, so then you get a settlement."
Yeah,
like we're gonna and. They agreed on something that was like half of her money, is what her and her financial team came up
I would
with.
imagine it was a fair amount, especially because she probably still loved him in some way.
Yeah, still wanted to be friends, she said.
Yeah. And so after that first meeting, Paul Snyder, her husband, starts asking around people like, "Hey, you know anywhere I can get a gun?"
Yeah.
And
and he did actually. Someone let him borrow a gun?
Yes. One of his friends let him borrow a gun on the condition that he return it immediately.
Yeah.
And then he was trying to get the private investigator to buy him a gun because I think he couldn't because he was from out of country.
Yeah, because he didn't have an ID or passport or a green card.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure you can't go to a foreign country and buy a gun. But they said like when he got
at least not the U.S.
No,
you probably do it in like maybe Mexico or South America.
You can probably go to a foreign country and find some way to buy a gun.
Yeah, that's true. Which is what he did.
Yeah, with just like a personal ad.
Yeah, selling a shotgun, 12-gauge shotgun.
Yeah, but it said when his friend let him borrow the gun that he went up to where Bogdanovich lived. And hid out in the shadows.
The shadows?
Yeah, and was just going to, if anybody opened the door, he was going to blast them.
Damn.
But I guess he sat there for a couple hours and nobody showed up.
Oh.
So then he just like went home.
Kicking rocks on the way home.
And then his friend was like, "Hey, I need that gun back."
So then the final meeting comes to sit down and do all the paperwork. Again, Dorothy's agent or manager or lawyers they're all like, "Hey, let us do this for you."
Yeah, you don't have to see him again.
You never ever have to see this guy again.
Yeah, and she was still like, "No, I think we can still want to be friends or maybe friendly at least."
And so Paul Snyder tells his buddies that, "Hey, I got Dorothy coming over. We're going to talk over this paperwork. I'm hoping to win her back. And so they all leave.
Yeah, his roommates.
It's just Snyder and Dorothy.
Yeah.
I feel like these names are kind of killing me.
Yeah, Paul Snyder. Yeah, and that's when everything goes,
Popped off.
Yeah.
So she tells him that they're not going to get back together.
Yeah.
And hands him the paperwork. And he goes off and grabs her. And did he point the gun at her?
They say, like, the speculation, it's all speculation because nobody knows what happens in there. But what they do know is that he got her into his room and made her get naked.
Yep.
And then tied her to a weight bench.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Yeah.
I guess it's got posts and stuff you could easily tie things to.
Yeah. And,
took advantage of her.
yes. And then still being distraught over the whole thing.
Shot her.
Yes.
And then, again, nobody was there to confirm, but it sounded like quite a while after, up to an hour after he shot her, he shot himself.
Yeah, because it seemed like she was there for an hour, and he shot her in the face. And then, I don't know what he was doing for an hour, but then he sat down and took himself out, too.
Yeah. After that, and an unknown amount of time after, his roommates come home.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, there's a lady's purse here, probably Dorothy's.
Yeah, they seen her car outside.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, they must have made up. They must be in...
Yeah, the door's locked.
Yeah,
the
Paul's
door's
room.
Yeah.
We'll let them have their privacy. After a period of time, they missed quite a few calls, it sounded like.
It seemed like the agent and that his... private investigator buddy were calling him a bunch because he tried to get the private investigator to buy him guns, and he's like, "That's not a good idea."
The private investigator was also going to wiretap him for the meeting because she had previously stated to Paul that she was going to take care of him.
Or she was always going to take care of him or something like that.
And that would have been a way to exploit, like maybe royalties or something out of him.
Yeah, or if they have to go to court and you're like, well, here's this recording we have of her saying that.
But he didn't have the right
equipment.
Yeah. Which is like, what would that equipment have looked like in the 80s?
Well, they had those little pocket recorders.
Like note recorders, like tape recorders?
Yeah, and then you just put a little
microphone under your t-shirt.
Yeah, you got to shave your chest and tape it on there.
Just like the movies. And so the PI does finally get through to the roommates. And they're like, yeah, they're upstairs. We don't want to bother them. But he pleads with them, please go check on them.
He's like, I have a bad feeling. Can you go check on them?
And they do. And it's a murder-suicide scene.
Yeah, it's very grisly. And then it said, this part was weird to me, because it said that a detective called Hugh Hefner and let him know that she had died. And then Hugh called Blaganovich and told him. And then, the next day, it was her mom was officially known.
Maybe they didn't have the numbers, or
yeah, I think it was more like it. To me, it felt like a leak.
Yeah,
we're working on this. Hey, don't say anything until we get 100% confirmed. But then someone was just like, "Oh no, I know who this is. I'm gonna call Hef and let him know that this lady passed away." Yeah,
and that day that she was murdered, what comes to theaters? Galaxina in fabulous 2D.
Technicolor.
Yeah. And so the next day when the actual police report was released, they removed it from theaters.
Yeah, they yanked it real quick.
I think I saw that. Okay, yeah. So a bunch of the tests that they could do, in 1980, were shown to be inconclusive to prove that Snyder had pulled the trigger of the gun. And it sounded like when you pull the trigger of the gun, supposedly it gets gunpowder residue on your hand.
Yeah, haven't you seen CSI where they drip the thing on their hands and then it turns blue? Light? Yeah, and it turns blue. He was so bloody that they couldn't do that test.
Yeah, and so they that information forced the case to be categorized as questionable suicide, possible homicide.
Yeah, because they couldn't say 100% either way.
Yeah. Apparently, many of Dorothy's and Paul's friends alleged that the scene had been staged.
Yeah, and even the private investigator
Yeah.
was trying to plead with the detectives to check out, like, do more investigating.
Which, I don't know who could have possibly done it.
Right, and I think that's why, like, after a week, they were like, no, we're pretty sure we know what happened here.
Yeah.
I guess there was even, like, a psychic.
Yeah, who claimed that she found the identity of the killer as an unemployed actor who had roped Dorothy and Paul into a drug deal gone bad.
Yeah, or maybe it was an unemployed actor that roped her into a drug deal and it went bad. And she was like, hey, I know who did it. I'm psychic.
Yeah. And I guess, that's mostly the story of Dorothy Stratton.
Yeah. And I guess like a month later, they finally do release Galaxina again.
Yes.
And they didn't change it to say like
the posters
or like in memory of or the late whatever. But I guess Bogdanovich complained and fought and yelled at the studio like and saying that they were insincere for what they did.
And Crown Media, the production company, actually put out a statement saying, our company had gone to great pains and much expense to avoid exploiting her death.
Yeah.
Which is like you just don't put the movie out for a little while.
Right.
That's great pains, I'd suppose.
For
$1 million company.
Yeah, but like they said, they didn't change it to be like featuring like make a big deal about that she was in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
They just put it back out. But I guess there was a movie called Death of a Playmate that came out.
Death of a Centerfold.
Death of a Centerfold.
No.
Death of a Playmate was the article in Variety that they wrote about it.
Yes.
Death of a Centerfold was the movie that I think...
NBC made-for-TV movie.
And I don't know if that's the one with Jamie Lee Curtis.
It is definitely that one.
It is that one? Okay. Yeah, because... I didn't really look much into that, but there was another one called Star 80. It was based on Stratton, but mostly focused on her husband, who was played by, I always want to say Matt Dillon.
Not Matt Damon.
No,
certainly.
It's one of the sleazy guys from Something About Mary, the like handsome guy. It's like I think he's a private detective. I don't know.
Something about, and he's talking about his spaghetti noodle wiener. It's not short; it's just thin.
Oh, I have no idea. But that one, Bogdanovich bitched about because they actually filmed the death scene in the actual house where the death took place.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's bad juju on that one, but...
Right. They're like, oh, we can actually get the actual location. All right. That one's weird. But Death of a Playmate and that Vanity Fair article, it's kind of like one of the first, not like whistleblowing, but like a Me Too thing where they're like, because of how they really...
shed some light on the way the Playboy mansion and company was exploiting these women.
Yeah, they kind of ripped into them. They said that Paul Snider was the kind of guy that could be influenced by the type of magazine that is Playboy and the way that they make all the glamour and glitz and make it seem like, maybe women are objects. Yeah,
here's one quote from it. One of the tactic tenets of the Playboy philosophy that women can be possessed had found a fervent adherent in Paul Snider. He brought the dream without qualification, and he thought of himself as perhaps one of the Playboy's most honest apostles. So, like, bringing a beautiful woman to get you hierarchy within, I mean, I would go so far as to say Hollywood.
Yeah.
And
trying to ride her star.
Yep, he saw that as a job.
Yeah.
Essentially.
To be like the groomer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Bogdanovich eventually wrote a book.
Yes.
And made several attacks at Playboy as well. That Hefner had forced himself upon Dorothy Stratton.
Yeah, The Killing of a Unicorn.
Oh, that's what it was?
That was the name of his book, yeah.
That's very fanciful.
Yeah.
Which is what it sounded like a lot of critics of this book have said, that he like kind of overemphasizes he was only in her life for like a year. You know?
That, yeah.
Yeah.
And that he was like, it was like star-crossed lovers, and this was the happily ever after kind of love.
Yeah. And so, yeah, a lot of the critics have said that he like really fluffed it up.
Aggrandized himself.
Aggrandized. Wow, what a word, Dave.
Yes.
And Hefner eventually shot back at this book. What was it called? Death of a Unicorn?
The Killing of the Unicorn.
Killing of the Unicorn. Hefner shot back and stated that during the whole time that Dorothy and Bogdanovich were together, Peter Bogdanovich was still, and Dorothy were both still friends with him.
Yeah.
You know, so Bogdanovich's statements of her talking ill of her time at Playboy got less credit, I suppose.
Right.
But I could see both ways. You know, I have worked with really shitty people, and then I go to work and I say hey to them. You know.
Yeah. But also in his book, he claims that the whole reason she married Snyder in the first place is to stop Hugh Hefner's advances. To be like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm married. Like,
oh, okay.
Stop hitting on me, old man.
Yeah. And Hefner also had accused Bogdanovich of starting to groom Dorothy's younger sister.
Yeah, her 13-year-old sister.
Supposedly paying for her private schooling and modeling classes. The Hoog Stratton family filed a slander suit against Hefner that was eventually dismissed. And in a shocking turn of events, Dorothy's younger sister, Louise, stated that nothing sexually had happened between her and Blagojevich until she was 18, but they eventually get together.
Yeah, I want to say it's like it's been in the 90s, but when she turned 20 years old, they got married.
Yeah, divorced 13 years after.
I mean, 13 years.
That's a decent time to be married.
Yeah, but still, it is that creepy. Okay, what are you doing there?
Yeah, you write this whole book about how you and her sister were star-crossed lovers, and now you marry.
And then you marry her younger sister.
The runner-up.
Yeah,
I don't know. I shouldn't be talking about ladies.
But
like
I
that,
think also she was in a couple of his movies.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And there was a Bryan Adams song written about her. The best was yet to come.
Dorothy Stratton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't look that one up because I also...
It sucked.
I'm sure.
Bryan Adams. Bryan fucking Adams.
Yeah, because Wikipedia also said Californication by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And believe it or not, on my drive here, it was playing on Alt 104.5. And I'm like, it doesn't say anything about that. It talks about Kurt Cobain more than it talks about this lady.
Really?
Like, her name doesn't even come up.
And Kurt Cobain makes way more sense.
Yeah. I mean, there's one part that's like, little girls from Sweden try to steal your modulation or something.
Oh.
Or like dreams of Silverstream Caucasians. Something. There's like, but that's the only part. And it's just, well, you're just talking about Hollywood in general, where girls come to think they're going to be models and movie stars, but really you're not. And
you're just going to get taken advantage of.
Yeah. And how outer space is the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. Like
Galaxina, baby.
Yeah. Oh man, that's what happened. They got really altered and was like, oh man, if you connect that to this, that equals it, man.
Yeah, what another crazy story. That just kind of came off of
just
a bad movie.
Yeah, and it was how I found out. I'd watch movie reviews sometimes to see like if I want to watch this bad B movie or like
because this was an example of a bad B movie.
Super bad. But I mean, everybody looked like they were having fun.
I could see that.
Like
they were taking it seriously.
Yeah, but they were like having fun being the actors and stuff. Two facts. If I don't forget them. They all laughed. They tried to put out, but the studio wanted to like a limited release just to see how it would do, and it didn't do good.
Yeah.
So they're like, we're gonna shelve it. So then Blagojevich spent $5 million. Bogdanovich. I don't know, not the mayor, but the other one.
Yeah.
He actually dumped his net worth, which was $5 million, to buy the rights to the movie, so it could get an actual like release.
Yeah.
So what do you like a wide release?
Yeah.
And then, it was like a middle of the road movie. That's what it sounded like.
Yeah. He spent $5 million to buy it. And release it. And it made $1 million.
Yeah, $1 million.
I think it made less than $1 million. Actually, I think it was like 700,000.
Yeah, because he had to file for bankruptcy. But he actually ended up not. I mean, all his weirdness aside, as a professional, he ended up not so bad. He was actually, besides being a director and a writer and a critic, he was also an actor.
Okay.
And he was Dr. Melfi's psychiatrist on The Sopranos.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought so, too.
Yeah. Well, what a depressing episode.
Yeah.
But, I mean, realistically, it's got merit. You know, I mean, if nothing else, just take away that don't be a groomer. Don't take advantage of people.
No.
Especially now, we live in a world where that is hopefully less possible, but it happens every day on such a smaller scale. Like I had to take a video class on spotting abuse, physical, emotional, and sexual, to be able to volunteer for my kids' hockey team. And I was just running like the clock. I was just pushing an on-off button.
Okay.
But it's like, I don't know, I felt like knowing those signs and knowing that information has kind of helped me. I haven't like caught a predator or nothing.
Right.
But it helps me, well, maybe me, one, being a better person.
Right.
Because it's like an uncomfortable thing you have to talk about. But also to potentially be able to spot it and help somebody else. I think it's a pretty powerful tool.
Yeah, it's good to have. I don't know if you were there, but at your old job, there was a couple ladies that were getting harassed by a person.
Yeah.
And they brought it up to HR and seemed like nothing happened.
Nope.
But then a guy, brought it up, and then all of a sudden then they're walking the guy out that day, which is that's not how that's supposed to happen.
No.
And I don't get that. It's especially since the HR department is probably, 70% women.
Well, yeah, and I started there a while after you, I think.
Yeah.
And a while after quite a few other people, and I was talking to other people, and I was like, "Have you seen this? What's going on here?" And they were like, "Yeah, dude, it's a problem."
Yeah, because I thought of that too. I'm like, and then I'm like, what's going on here? And they're like, "Oh, well, they just like the one lady had to move her desk way into some corner."
Yeah.
So he wouldn't like be bothering her.
Like, what kind of sense does that make?
Right. Or like some other lady had to have like a roll cart, so every time he came up, she could put it between them.
Yeah.
Like he wouldn't take a hint. Like
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That is. Makes me sick to my stomach.
That's fucking gross. Yeah. We're supposed to be protectors and providers, not creeps and deplorables.
Yeah, we need to protect people while we make weapons of mass destruction.
Fuck yeah.
You got anything else, Dave?
No. I just hope that we did it justice and not come off like we're mansplainers.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta have a little fun.
Yeah.
Even whatever the topic is. And I mean, maybe this branches out to a bigger podcast later, but I think that a bigger podcast later, that would have to be done a little bit different. Yeah,
and I could see maybe not this topic, but a similar, like a true crime, something, but maybe have like there are old ladies on here, so there's a woman's perspective for the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? If nothing else, whether you're a man or a woman, maybe go out and Google signs of grooming, because it can come in all sorts of different ways. And I could see, I mean, worst case, you end up dead, I would imagine. But I could see people doing it just because they're not good people, even if you don't get anything out of it, maybe.
Yeah.
But you can seriously psychologically mess somebody up. Like some of the things I had heard is like buying gifts.
Yeah.
And then taking somebody away from their friends and family, which moving them to LA.
Right.
And, it starts off as like, a hand on the shoulder, and then the lower back, and then the leg.
Right.
If you see stuff like that, you got to tell somebody. Even if you're wrong. Who cares if you're wrong?
I mean, at least you're like, well, it's still like inappropriate in some cases.
And my old job, that was the thing for me. I had a clear line of sight to this just about every day.
Yeah.
And it made me uncomfortable. Like, go to the mall or, a dinner, a nice sit-down dinner, and do whatever you want there. I'm trying to work here.
Right. But not even that. Just don't be a creep at work. And if you do like a person, ask them out. And if they say no, respect their boundaries.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Consent comes in all sorts of forms. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Ended on a downer. But this podcast is here for you to think.
Yes, we like to mix it up.
It's not all fart jokes and aliens.
Cryptids.
Yeah. But, take care of the people around you, and also be good to yourselves.
Yes, and remember, act with kindness, but do not expect gratitude. One more time. From the top. 1, 2, 3, 4. We are Sex Baba. We are here to watch Scott Pilgrim kick your teeth in.
We're here to podcast and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, that looks like it should be good.
All right.
Ready?
Yeah.